Good evening. It is time for the IRS, today's tax talk, or the IRS coming after you, because that's what they do. Anyway, today's tax talk, I am your host. I'm attorney Stephen Leahy. Today is Monday, December 27th, the year of our Lord 2021. And, this Build Back Better, we've been talking a lot about this Build Back Better bill. Biden's Build Back Better bill, as I like to call it, the five Bs. And it looks like it might not pass, but they're still pushing for it to pass. There's still lots in there that we should pass. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Won't you join us? Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It is after Christmas, so thanks. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas. I know I did. Christmas is always a wonderful time of year for me. I hope for you too. As I was mentioning, we've talked a lot about, let me move over here just a little bit. We've talked a lot about the Build Back Better, Biden's Build Back Better bill over the last couple of weeks, actually months now we've been talking about it. It didn't always have that same name. They called it several different things, but it turned into the Biden's Build Back Better bill. And, it's one of those ominous bills, omnibus bills that have so much in it. It's such a large bill that nobody knows what's in it. Nancy Pelosi's famous. We have to pass the bill to find out what's in it. Well, one thing about Manchin at least not voting for it now, and again, I think he's going to be persuaded to support the bill in some form, not its current form. Much of it's going to be trimmed out of there, but what is not going to be trimmed out is going to be the important part. And so we should not let up now. But one thing about Manchin and giving us time is we're finding out what's in the bill. That we didn't always know, although they've been talking about a lot of it. So, for instance, the bank statement thing that we've talked a lot about on this program, and now when it came out elsewhere, I still think that's part of it. The growing of the IRS, doubling their budget by $80 billion over 10 years. That's almost doubling their budget, and more than doubling the size of the employees to 87,000. Right now it's at 83,000. They want to add 87,000. So they don't want to just grow to 87. They want to more than double the size of the IRS so they can do audits and come after people. I know they promise only to go after those with more than 400,000, but that's just not the truth. And it's already happening where they're already auditing small businesses. And all of this it's about raising money. Turning the screws on regular Americans to gather more money. That's just all this is about. One of the provisions that are now coming out and that people are starting to object to more is this provision that the IRS will prepare all the tax returns. They want to get rid of tax preparation services. And we do prepare taxes for people, but that's not the focus of my practice. We help people solve IRS problems. And one of the things you have to do to solve IRS problems is get into compliance. And so that means preparing tax returns. We do prepare tax returns. But that, my concern is not about, they tried this some years ago, the IRS, where this case called Loving versus the IRS, where the IRS tried to impose restrictions on who could and who could not prepare tax returns. It was defeated in court to the Supreme Court, and it was defeated. So the courts found that the IRS did not have the authority to do that, regulate tax preparers. So now what they want to do is just take it over and they just will provide a free service to everyone. And it's a bad idea. But let's look at some articles that explain why it's a bad idea. if it's not self-evident about why it's a bad idea. So here's an article. Buried in the 1,700-page reckless tax and spend bill. This is from Americans for Tax Reform. So they don't like this bill at all. But I think it's still good. Buried in the 1,700-page reckless tax and spend bill is a provision that would move the U.S. toward the creation of a government tax preparation service, or system, I should say. This is a terrible idea that has been long priority for progressive politicians in Congress, like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, and Congresswoman AOC. It would replace the existing system of voluntary compliance, where Americans are responsible for filing their own tax returns, with a system where the government assesses and files taxes for Americans. As I learned, and I don't know that much about other tax return countries and what they do, but I have had some foreign-born clients who come to America and are really astonished by our system. And that I found that some countries, they tell you what you owe every year and then you have to pay it. Of course, many of the countries that I'm talking about don't have the privacy laws that we have, or the Fifth Amendment, or any of the amendments that protect Americans. And so a lot of this is the government controls everything and then tells them what they have to pay at the end of the year. We're blessed that we have some of these provisions that protect ourselves from our governments, and that's why a reason why I oppose all this. But okay, so let's just kind of skip this. Why feasibility cost? Actually, what's going on is they're going to have a study to find out how they can do this. So the bill doesn't provide to just take over for preparing your own taxes, but simply come up with a study to show how they can be done. And of course, we all know how the government will find that it's not only can it be done, it should be done. Okay, so here's 3 reasons why it's a bad idea. First, it would create a strong conflict of interest. Well, obviously. First, let me also say before I go into all this. Right now with the IRS, if the IRS has your W-2s, they have your 1099s, and if you don't file your tax return, the IRS files it for you. This is called a substitute for return, or an SFR, okay? And an SFR, again, it's a substitute for return. This happens when you don't file your own tax return, and the IRS determines that you are going to owe some money. Now, if you don't file your own tax return and the IRS thinks that they're going to give you a refund, they won't prepare it for you because they're not going to give you the refund. But if they think you're going to owe them, they will prepare your own tax return. Again, it's called an SFR, a substitute for return. They'll use the information that they have and they'll prepare a return for you. Because before they can start collecting on a tax, it first must be assessed. And before they can assess a tax, a return must be filed. And so if you don't file your own tax return, in order for them to assess the tax, they have to prepare the return for you. And then they can start collecting on that return, on that tax that was assessed. And so that's the way the system works. I always tell my clients, an SFR is not a service. They're not doing you a favor. It's a penalty. You are generally going to pay much more in taxes if you leave it to the IRS to prepare your tax return. I fear that this is the same thing here, right? They have a conflict of interest, as this article points out. Under the system of government-run tax preparation, the IRS would tell you how much you owe and give you an opportunity to contest. This would give the government an incentive to overcharge or withhold information from taxpayers. Americans already struggle with understanding the tax code. 65% of voters think the tax code is too complicated. I'm surprised it's only 65%. I guess a vast majority of Americans don't even file taxes, so they wouldn't find that complicated. So according to polling conducted by the Harris poll, just 7% think the code is too simple. Those are the people that don't file a tax return. And 28% that the code has about the right level of complexity. Given this, it is probable that many taxpayers will take the government at their word and accept whatever the IRS tells them to pay they owe, even if the taxpayer does not decide to contest. There is no guarantee that they will be aware of every deduction and credit they are owed unless they hire an expert to assist them. Second, the proposal would empower the IRS to collect even more personal information. Now, this is another thing. One reason why we oppose the bank statement is revelations is the personal information involved in there, and that we're giving all this information to the government and to the IRS in particular, right? And they already have a lot of. I always tell my clients, IRS, tax information doesn't get much more personal than that. But do we really want to give them even more personal information? That doesn't seem to bode well for me. So a recent report on the Progressive Policy Institute noted that the IRS currently does not have the information it needs to prepare tax returns for American families. This could deprive low-income Americans from important tax credits like the child tax credit and earned income tax credit. That's not even a tax. That's giving you money. That's not taxes. That's giving you money in order to properly file for Americans. So they're concerned that people aren't getting the free money that they deserve. Well, if you can't get up and at least file a tax return because you're going to get money back, now the government should take it upon themselves to do the tax return for you to make sure you get the money. That doesn't make any sense. In order to properly file for Americans, the report notes, the IRS would have to have deep knowledge of the personal lives of a family, which would result in a significant intrusion into personal lives of American citizens. Not only would giving the government this new power be unfeasible, but it is also deeply unpopular. According to the data of the computer and communication industry, 60% of taxpayers oppose government tax preparation, including 45% that strongly oppose. Those are the 45% that pay taxes and file their own tax returns. Just 8% of taxpayers strongly support the government tax preparation. And again, these are people that don't pay taxes. They don't want the burden to do their own tax return, so they would prefer that somebody else did it for them. Third, the IRS already struggles to protect taxpayer data and complete basis tasks, so we should be wary of giving the agency new responsibilities. Now, this is absolutely true, right? And that now they can't even protect the data that they have. If we give them more data, will they be able to protect it better or worse? Well, I think the obvious answer is obviously they would do worse. In June of this year, the progressive group of ProPublica, we talked a lot about that on this case, on this show, I should say. It has received the stolen private tax returns of thousands of taxpayers covering 15 years. Since this announcement, ProPublica has released multiple articles claiming to have detailed taxpayer information of specific individuals. If this information is accurate, its disclosure is illegal. However, the IRS and Treasury Department claim to not know how this tax information was returned. Well, shouldn't there be an investigation to determine how they got that information? Because if they have that information, quite possibly, probably, I even would say, they got it through a violation of the law. While this is concerning, it is not the only case where the IRS has failed to protect taxpayer data. For instance, in 2016, the Inspector General of the Tax Administration report found that the IRS had lost track of 1,000 laptops containing sensitive taxpayer data that contract employees use. Similarly, in 2015, hackers stole the personal data of 330,000 taxpayers. Reports indicated that the hackers didn't use suspected tactics, but instead managed to steal data by going through the website and pretending to be regular people filing their taxes. California already tried a government tax filing system, and it was an abject failure. Again, I wouldn't leave it to the government to do it. So here's another article about it. Don't let the IRS become your accountant. And he voices very much the same concerns, those three concerns that were just voiced in that other article. As a financial planner, I help hardworking West Virginians save enough to enjoy their hard-earned retirements and protect themselves against financial loss. My clients come to me because they want an expert who is on their side and can give them honest advice. Similarly, many West Virginians work with a trusted certified professional accountant to do their taxes, because they want an expert in their corner who will fight to ensure that they can keep their hard-earned dollars and receive every deduction to which they are entitled. That is why I'm very concerned about proposals being debated in Washington that would expand the mandate and authority of the Internal Revenue Service to establish an IRS-run tax preparation system and even prepare tax returns on behalf of all taxpayers. Such proposals represent an inherent conflict of interest and would limit the financial freedom of Americans. I agree with that too. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but I agree with that 100%. And again, those three reasons are enough, right? First, conflict of interest. Of course, there's a conflict of interest. You're looking at the IRS. They want to maximize the tax that they collect. You want to minimize the tax that you pay. Conflict of interest. Second, you're going to give them more information than they already have. They already have all this sensitive information from me. Now they want deep family, personal information. I don't think so. Third, security of that information. They can't prove that they could secure the information that they have. Are we supposed to give them more personally identifiable information and then ask them to protect it? They can't protect what they have. We shouldn't do that until they can prove to us that they can protect what they already have. Then maybe we could consider it. I actually still wouldn't consider it, but that would make more sense, wouldn't it? If they could prove that they can protect what they have, well, maybe it would take away one of these arguments. And it's a good argument, So anyway, that's where we are on this. It is slow news days now with the IRS, given that most of them are off work for the week, and so there'll be a slow news day. But tomorrow is Crypto Tuesday. Lots of information on Crypto Tuesday we can find out, we can talk about. So join us tomorrow to talk about Crypto Tuesday. Remember now, if you're fighting the IRS, I always tell people, where do you start? If you're having problems with the IRS, how do you start to fight them? Well, here's how you start to fight them. Get a copy of my book, Deal with Your IRS Problem Today. It'll detail how this all works. And it's where you begin. It may not be where you stop. Maybe you'll have to get help, but maybe you don't. Maybe you can solve your own IRS problem. Given the information in this book, this is where you should start. Go to freeirsbook.com, freeirsbook.com, and start there. It makes sense, doesn't it? freeirsbook.com. And remember, we're going to ask you to like and subscribe. Like and subscribe to the page. We provide tax information, the tax news. Almost all news comes down to tax news, right? How do they get the money from you and how do they spend it? That's what politics and news is all about. And this is where you'll find the best tax news here on today's Tax Talk. So join us, won't you? And we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow for Crypto Tuesday, my favorite day of the week. Join us, won't you? Join us, won't you?